constitutional issue. The people that were involved in filing it are working on filing federal cases, and they're going to be asking support in the community to overturn this plan in the federal courts. So that is one aspect. The other aspect is when the courts and your village violate your rights, you have other ways of dealing with it and not listening to people say, oh, this is a done deal. This is so illegal, it's so wrong, and it's not over, as someone once said, it's not over till God says it's over. That was Juanita.
Right.
I would just like to comment real quickly, because she's going off on a tangent, leaving you with a misimpression. It was not an illegal meeting. I hope she does appeal. I hope she wins. I hope it's stopped. The fact of the matter is, if we just stayed on North Main Street, you'd be proud. I'm not happy and excited. I would support that effort. But the inference that the mayor's lied, the inference that there's something illegal going on, is totally unfair and is close to where it's libelous. You need to really understand that your enthusiasm is one thing and your opinion is fine, but you've got to deal with the facts. The fact that the court did not agree doesn't make the court corrupt. It may make you need to revisit your request and come up with some other reasons that the court might agree.
That's all that is.
Pardon me?
Because the law speaks for itself. That's a backroom deal with that court.
Well, I mean, that's again what you're suggesting.
Like I said, you said you don't like the deal, right? If I can show you legally that it's wrong, will you make an effort to stop this?
I'm making an effort. I'm meeting with people. I'm doing the things necessary, but it's just not verbalizing it. We have to be able to get an attorney who can represent us. And unfortunately, one of the things that's necessary is to be represented by an attorney. It would have to be on a pro bono basis. I believe there was no attorney representing this particular suit that may have possibly wicked it. I don't know. But it did lose. It's got to be redeveloped, revisited. It's got to come up with some clear indications as what can be done to stop the project. It can't just be throwing out this verbal diarrhea. There's got to be something here which has some merit in law. Yes, I would agree. If you could find it, we'll go forward together.
I got you.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
I'm on it tomorrow.
Beautiful. I wish you were on it 2 years ago.
Tomorrow, I got you.
Listen, but we didn't know about this.
No, there were open meetings. There was one at Kennedy, one at Hofstra, one at Village Hall. There had been meetings. People have talked. In fact, on some of the meetings, there was a pretty strong pro sense. Now, I wasn't flattered by that, but there was the fact that there had been 43 speakers, and I think 40 of them spoke in favor. So one of the things that we had was that. Now, I find that minimally impressive, but nevertheless, I just want to cite that as a number so you can fully understand that people did have an open mic and an opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Just two clarifications. One thing in terms of what can be done. Aside from the lawsuit, there is what was happened in the 60s, and that is when people's rights were violated, they took nonviolent action, protesting and creating more and more awareness in the community, demanding, and I do believe that if the people in this community really knew what was in store for them, because there's going to be a forced exodus when this thing gets implemented, if and when it does. And that is the problem. Once you start putting all this luxury housing in the middle of the community and tearing down everything, they plan to tear down everything. You have to read the Master Developer Agreement. They plan to tear down everything and put up a city, a luxury city here, and you are going to be taxed out, and people's the existing apartment buildings, the people will be thrown out because they'll be converted to high rent and condo buildings. This is a takeover of the community, and what you can do is to find out the facts. You must read the Master Developer Agreement, you must analyze it, and you must take action. Community-based action is what is needed. Protests, demonstrations, this has to be done. This cannot be allowed to go through here, and it's not because I don't believe Hempstead needs to be improved. We at the Committee to Save Hempstead, we want to see Hempstead improved, but we don't want to see it done in a way where everyone is forced out of the community.
Please keep in mind there were 280 acres in that area. 26 are owned by the village. If any of the other individuals want to buy into this plan, they do it on a private arrangement with whomever wants to purchase and do what they do.
That's
It is
what the
not something
contract
that,
says. I mean,
it cannot be
I
done.
don't
We
think
cannot
people
take
get this.
this, we have not using eminent domain. Therefore, we cannot seize private property for the public good. This has to be done on a private basis. We have control of 26 acres out of the 280.
But it says that you must help them buy all the other properties. It says the village must help them buy all the other properties, and not just the privately owned properties, but to buy the town-owned properties, the town hall, the building where the town has you pay your taxes over there, to buy the county
200
buildings.
North Franklin.
The village promises, when they signed that, the village promised to help them buy all those properties, the governmental properties, the transit properties, and the privately owned properties. It's in the contract. That's what they signed.
All agreements of that nature have to be done between the two. Eminent domain is not in the agreement.
Between the two of who?
We're not talking
Between
about...
whoever owns the piece of property and a developer, someone who wants to invest.
Exactly.
If it is private property, not the public, like for example, the parking lots, that is between whoever wants to buy it and whoever owns it, who's willing to sell it. If that meeting of the minds doesn't take place, no sale takes
And
place.
if the meeting of the minds does take place, then the sale does take place.
They can.
Okay.
Just like you could sell your home and I could sell mine, that would be the same theory.
Right, but don't the people own this also? Don't the people own?
No. No, we're talking about the private property.
Yeah,
If you're talking about owned by the village, clearly the answer would be yes. And there are 26 acres of that.
Right, but they're giving them the opportunity to do. What about people who are, the people who have lived in their village for 40, 50 years, and are going to be displaced?
No.
Yes. What about
Why would they be displaced?
they won't be able to?
Well, right now you're talking about the development of 336 units in parking lot 1. Those
Right now.
individuals, yes, that's all we're talking about, right. If you want to go further and they put more buildings up, they're going to have to put it on the parking lots owned by the village that we would sell to them. We're not selling private property to them. That's the discretion of the owner of the private property. That's not our discretion.
Okay,
And
thank
since we're not using eminent domain, we cannot claim private property for the public good.
It doesn't say you're not using eminent domain.
It does,
says-
we're not using.
It says you don't intend.
We're not
Now, that's a
using-
very open word.
We're not
You
using
don't
eminent
intend.
domain.
Next week, maybe you will intend.
Yes.
And so you promised to help them buy all those other properties. And when you see this map, you see they intend to take every property because they have all these red new buildings here. It's time to face the truth of what is going on.
Truth
Okay.
is, you're misleading the public.
Don, thank you. The next question is, does 303 Main have a pilot?
Yes, it does. Let me explain pilots real quick. Payment in lieu of taxes. It's offered by the town of Hempstead, it's offered by the county of Nassau. The county of Nassau gave a very attractive pilot to the west side of Terrace Avenue. The town of Hempstead has given out pilots, including at 600 Fulton Avenue. I disagreed and spoke against it at the time. If you look at the rule for pilot, it's designed for two things. It's designed to prevent deterioration of a neighborhood and create jobs. It says nothing in the state mandate that you can take an existing apartment complex and grant it a pilot. Yet they did it. We fought it and we lost. We need to fight it more. Now the deputy speaker is getting involved. And she is passing a legislation dealing with the villages of Freeport and Hempstead, which will say that any future pilot that is granted needs to get approval by the local elected body, which can stop this. But as it now exists, yes, there are pilots being given out. And yes, Mr. Gary points out a good thing, not with the eminent domain, but with the pilots. When asked, Don Monty said, we don't expect to use a pilot. But there will no doubt, everybody runs and uses a pilot. Everyone runs to use a pilot because it's a gift. They end up paying less taxes, and yet the taxes remain the same. So the additional money has to be spread among all of us. And in the town, it's not the town, it's the village. And in the county, it's not the county, it's the village. So it is an extra burden on us. And the deputy speaker has noted this, And with the support of Kemp Hannon, there's going to be hopefully legislation which will put an end to what is an unfair burden on our residents.
Okay, the next question is, does this project reduce taxes on the property owners?
That's the theory. I'm with you on this one. I don't see it necessarily happening because we're talking about one side of the equation and not both sides. Yeah, there's going to be some additional money. Property, like any of our parking areas, don't give us much revenue. They do give us some revenue, but not a lot. There'll be more revenue. But there's going to be more expenses. We know there's going to be people that are going to live in there, which they're going to have children attending the schools. Now, they talk about selling to empty nesters and young professionals without children. Well, young professionals without children soon become young professionals with children. So there's no question we're the most crowded community in the state of New York. And there's a potential of adding some 10,000 new people with the additional these apartment areas over a wide area. That's a concern. We're getting apartment buildings off the hook. And I really think we do need a moratorium on that. And then we have a member of the school board with us, and she'll tell you that the school district is going to be overwhelmed. And it's not a problem we can take lightly. So there are additional expenses which could balance the fact that whatever additional income we get from non-revenue-bearing land probably will be minimal, if at all.
Okay, Ms. Garrett.
I did refer to Ms. Braisley. She has her hand up if you would be courteous.
You want to answer that question, Ms. Gary? Does 303 have
Yes, 303 has a 20-year pilot, and it was supported by the mayor. Now, I tried to get updated information on it because the ownership has changed. I haven't heard yet back if it's still a 20-year pilot. But they got a 20-year pilot, and the mayor supported it. They supported 303. They changed the zoning. They allowed all kinds of special permissions to that to 303, and 303 was supposed to hire and train young people to do construction work. Went back on its commission, its promises. Reggie Benjamin tried to get them to hire when they were like halfway finished with the building, and he had to fight them and fight them and fight them, and he complained and complained. And they would hire some people for a week or two, and then they would fire them, and it was like a real mess. And now they're trying to use 303 Main Street as an example of how we can get jobs for people. I was there at every meeting where Reggie was complaining about how they were uncooperative. At any rate, Sean, the developer, representative of the developer, was asked at 2 public meetings about pilots. He has said there will be pilots, and I guarantee, because they have refused to say there won't be pilots, there are going to be pilots. And that means that you are going to be subsidizing luxury housing. That you, the taxpayers, are going to be subsidizing luxury housing. And what is even worse is what they call tax increment financing. And that is available under the Master Developer Agreement and under the Master Plan. Tax increment financing means if the village is getting this much tax dollar from the area right now, and when they build these luxury buildings, they will now get this much tax because the assessed value will go up. So what they get today and what they get after they build the building is called the increment, the tax increment. The developer can use the tax increment, the money, this money, to pay for the cost of the construction. So there goes your tax savings.
I just mentioned there's no question 303 Main Street does have a pilot. 303 Main Street was the first one on the block, so they did get a little bit of a gift, I guess, in that regard. I'm not excited about pilots, and a robust economy would be a good idea. But sometimes it's difficult to encourage businesses to come into the village. It's unfair, but it's a reality. Nevertheless, right now, it's not a healthy situation, and one that we need to fight. And we do now have, with Kemp Hannon and Early Hooper, 2 very strong people at the state level that have the ability to change that, and they're in the process of doing just that. But just for the sake of numbers, I'm going to ask you, Reggie, if you don't mind, Mr. Benjamin, to tell us how many people were hired at 303 Main Street.
We made sure we kept records of everybody that was employed there. We made sure that we tracked what was happening as a result of them getting on the job. If anybody's interested in that, I will share that. Those guys did work more than 2 weeks. Not only did they get some experience there, but they was transitioned out into other jobs. I had records of that. We had over 53 guys working on that particular site. One gentleman in particular was able to start his own business. The person that owns the welding business right across the street had hired several people, and he was able to get over $1.2 million in contracts. If you're interested in the facts, I will be able to provide that with you. If you just want to yell, then I'll be quiet.
Thank you. The next question, does the CDA owe money to the village already? Does the Community Development Agency owe money to the village?
Yes.
How much?
The question wasn't asked how much, I was going to say.
Here's the situation in a nutshell. 100 Main Street has been guaranteed by the CDA regarding their mortgage. When it was defaulted upon, it was a tremendous burden on the CDA. That particular building now is approximately worth $4.6 million. The county is interested in selling it. We would love to see it sold. There are several agencies and people that are interested in purchasing it. Once that is taken away from us, and the CDA can operate on a more affluent basis, then other projects and community-based organizations will be the recipient of that generosity. But right now, and we've been suffering for quite a while, we are responsible for, the CDA is responsible for that. And that's a big nut. And $4.6 million is approximately what it's worth. There's a lot of people at the table, as we talk, discussing the possible purchase of that. But there are some problems. For example, there's a McDonald's. McDonald's has an agreement that goes back, and it's a CDA matter, not a village matter, in which you can't then put other places in there that sell similar type of foods. So restaurants become an issue. So what's going to happen there, and where we're going to go, remains to be seen. There are a couple of people who have big businesses, not yet privy to announce which they are, that are talking about purchasing it. I hope that happens. It will ease the burden on the CDA, and obviously proportionate to us.
Trustee Wright, I just want to make a correction. 100 Main is not up for sale. 100 Main was suggested that building be sold as a tax deed. You can check that out.
That's what?
Be sold.
As a tax deed.
Okay, which I believe I'm right on the figure, 4.6 million.
No, tax deeds do not sell for that type of money.
All right, but I talked today to an individual who was involved in one of the people purchasing that, and that's some money that he told me when I asked him where we were going with that.
I'll give you some documentation on it.
Okay, you're a real estate agent. I appreciate that. Your input.
The next question, at this stage, is there anything the residents of the village can do? Can the residents get any relief, tax breaks due to change of plans? That's to either one of you.
The change of plans, and you're talking about the fact that they're out of the North Main Street area somewhere else.
I'm talking about,
Yes.
I'm talking about out of the North Main Street, I'm talking about over by Town Hall. Is there a tax break that's going to come from this development at any point in time?
The only
residents?
tax break that'll come is the increased taxes that'll be collected from the individuals who have to pay taxes because they bought land. There is no plan afoot that guarantees that all of us are going to see any reduction in our prices. Now, there is some talk at the state level where we can all get a check back, and that's one of the things we're all excited about. I went to a meeting the other day with all the elected officials to listen to this, and these checks can vary from $25 to $150.
Wow.
But it requires that you do some things to show that you're trying to save money. Redeveloping, restructuring departments, coordinating with other communities and agencies in order to be able to purchase things at lower prices. The fact of the matter is you have to draw a line, and most of the government agencies are withdrawing from this because some of the residents are being told, well, you'll save $150, but your services are going to be cut. So there's seemingly, we're not at that point in determining that, but there seems to be some argument in that regard. So there's a lot of confusion with this. It's something that the governor's done better than what we had. It's not good. And where we go with that will remain to be seen.
Okay. Ms. Bracy?
And we don't, there's no place else on Long Island that has over 28 buildings, apartment buildings, off the tax rolls. So Hempstead does. The town and the county, that is true, they're the ones that are responsible. But the people that live here have some responsibility as well. We cannot continue not to say anything and not to organize, as Ms. Garrett has suggested, because we are grossly being taken advantage of.
Yes.
In Nassau County, the largest population of black home ownership is in the Village of Hempstead. So there's no other place where you can just take buildings off the tax rolls. The school district is affected tremendously. In addition to 590 and 600, I'm just calling them out because they're on the top of my head. But in addition to them having a pilot that was just, they just extended their pilot. They have, and I have it in my bag, they have as many as 4 and 5 families living in a one-bedroom apartment in 500 and 690. I have, by residents, people that have come and registered for school, and it's by adults that have done it. I have as much as 8 adults that have registered somebody in a one-family home. And this is all going on in Hempstead. The schools are overcrowded because the houses and the apartment buildings that are already in place have multiple families living in one-family units. We have to do something about it. Now, I brought up recommendations with the school board. Nobody's moving swiftly about anything. I know we have to change our registration and the way we do it. But in the meantime, what do we do about what's going on in our community? I'm telling you, I don't know who's who. I don't know who's getting paid and who's not getting paid. But I can tell you, this is the end of my 3rd year on the school board, which is the end of my term. And we have not been able to address any of these issues, primarily because nobody comes to the meetings. And the people that do come to the meetings are there to support the spoilers. And that's the bottom line. So if you sit home and just criticize what's going on, I've been getting beat down for 2.5 years. I'm by myself. I really am. And they keep extending the pilots. And if we marched on Village Hall, if we marched on Town Hall, I don't know who all these empty seats up here are for, but why are they not here?
Right.
And then we keep electing the same people.
Right.
We do
Right.
it. We do it. It's 60,000 people in this village. You know how many people come out for the school board election? 2,000.
Right.
2,000 people. And so now we have all of these people, everybody's fighting me because I'm asking about attacking these multiple families in a unit. Now listen, my sister and I my sister moved now because she can't take it anymore, but we lived in the same house. We both have children. Our children did not, our children are different in age, so they weren't all in school at the same time, so my house would not have shown 2 adults registering children, simply because our children have a big gap in age. But there are some situations where you will have 2 adults. You have families that grew up here and they still live in the same house. That does happen. But to have 8 families in a one-family house, to have 7 families in a one-family house, 1/3 of the properties have more people living in them, more families living in them than is legally allowed. And what are we going to do? We have to do something.
Ms. Bracy, that's a building department
Code enforcement.
issue.
Well,
The overcrowding.
It's a building department issue, but we have more apartments that are being built. We have too many children in the ones that are already established, and nobody's watching anything. Now we have more. They're building more places. Where are those children going to go to school? How is our sewage system going to bear that? When are the roads going to be fixed? I mean, all of these things are issues, and everybody's upset about it. But if we don't come together and come up with a plan, I don't know what we're gonna do. And it has to be a civic plan, as she said. It has to.
Ms. Braisley, your point, if I could.
It's going to take the community.
Take a
Yeah.
stand.
Over 30% of our property is off the tax roll. That's rather unusual. East Meadow has a little bit higher, only because Eisenhower Park gives it a little bit of a distortion. The upstate communities, because of the Adirondack Park, also for the same reason. Otherwise, it's us in Albany. We have a tremendous amount of property off the tax roll.
But who has apartments?
Yeah.
Who has places where people live and need services
Right.
off the tax roll?
Yeah, we have a tremendous problem. I think I said this earlier in the presentation, that we need a moratorium on apartments. One of the problems we definitely have is there are violations of the building code. Now, there's a lot of tickets that are going out, they go before the judge, they're fined. It's worth it for them to pay the fine. And they go back and put a partial building up. We had a fire on 2 Washington Street, and tore the building. I mean, it's the building, the apartments divided up, multiple numbers of people living in one apartment. Now, it's true the school district needs a plan to make sure that there's some check to make sure the individuals reside in a legal. But we also have the problem at the village level to accept the fact that we have to work together. So it's one of the areas that is a problem. I'm just looking for a piece of paper here. I want to see if I can.
Well, while you're looking for your paper.
Yeah, go ahead.
Last year, we had 2 children that died in our school.
St. Paul's.
One was on St. Paul's, 17 people living in a one-bedroom house, and we lost that baby.
It's unbelievable.
The other one was on Fulton, across the street from Burger King, a house that had so many families in it, they put a bedroom on the front porch, and a bus drove through the porch and killed the baby. Now, we're not doing anybody any favors by not checking this stuff, and we're still not checking, despite losing lives of children. Here's the last thing, and I'm going to sit down. All of these people, if you live in a one-family house, if there's 3 families living in a one-family house, 2 of those families are considered homeless, according to McKinney-Vento law.
That's right.
If those people ever leave Hempstead and go to another community,
We pay.
Hempstead school system is going to be built for those children because they were homeless. And this was the last place that they lived. Okay? Now, I just told you we have over 1,000 homeless children in Hempstead. If everybody moves, it will bankrupt our school system. And our properties will, they're already not worth, I mean, you can't get anything for them. But it'll be far, far worse. So everything that's happening in Hempstead, and while we allow it to happen for whoever, you know, you have all of these organizations that's coming in here, they plan all of these meetings and everything. No meeting is important except the ones that they call. None of them live here. None of them. You know, I've been having meetings since October with homeowners, with senior citizens, with business owners. 5, 6 people show up. You know, and so, I don't know what else to say, but I'm telling you, if we don't organize, it's to our demise. There's no larger investment we're going to make in our homes.
Ms. Bracey,
Let me
I thank you. I thank you for your comment. We have to be out of
Can
here.
I just mention one quick thing?
We have to be out of here in
You
less
have
than 10
talked an
minutes.
awful lot, Dawn.
Thank you very much. Rockville Center, I appreciate that. Listen, watch this. The fact of the matter is, what the point that she makes is good. Hempdale knows this better than anybody. We have 5 school districts in the Village of Hempstead. So we have to realize we're talking about the Village of Hempstead, the Hempstead School District, but there are 5 districts. But you referenced the McKinney-Vento Act. Let me just read it to you real quickly in a nutshell. Here it says, students who are protected under McKinney-Vento Act are entitled to immediate enrollment in school, even if they don't have the documents normally needed, such as proof of residency, school records, immunization records, or birth certificates. Students who are protected under the McKinney-Vento Act may also be entitled to free transportation and other services. So you have to understand that Mrs. Braisley has to operate under the law. And this makes it even more difficult.
Hempstead, with all the negativity on the news, why not Garden City of New York? Why not renovate buildings that are on a foundation? Hempstead needs businesses, not apartment buildings, because the residents need revenue for taxes. Why weren't the people given a chance to vote on this plan? And this is illegal, so how can they put a shovel in the ground? The people matter. This is the this is the suburbs, not Manhattan. The people moved here away from the crowd. I think that was a statement. If the community is opposed to this plan, why is the village going forward? Let's see, about revitalizing the school system. I can't.
No, I said that we have more pressing issues, like the failing school system that we have here, okay, amongst other things, and the overpopulation. I mean, Hempstead is small if you compare it to West Hempstead, Garden City, East Meadow. It's a much smaller area. You've got all these people crammed in this one area.
Yeah, I guess.
We do.
It's cold in here.
Does someone want to respond to that?
Hempstead, as you said, is already overcrowded.
Well, I take that back. It's overcrowded with only two types of people.
Well, it has like 60,000 people in a very small area compared to other areas. Surrounding areas do not have that type of concentration of population. And yet, your village board, knowing that, voted to bring in, how many, 8,000 to 10,000 more people when they expanded it. And the village expanded it, not Don Monte. The village didn't have to vote for the expansion. The village voted for the expansion. They voted for an urban area. You see what the mayor wrote in the current paper, that they are bringing an urban area in here. They're bringing concentration of population. And as we said before, there is not going to be a tax benefit. And the current people that live in, a lot of really good people that live in a lot of these apartment buildings that have been there a long time, and they are going to suffer being forced out of the community, as well as the homeowners who are going to be taxed out. This is a disaster, this plan, and there must be community involvement, there must be resistance, there must be an awareness that this has been done illegally to you. See, this is the bottom line. It doesn't matter what the court said, because it's so clear what happened. The village trustees have lied to you, the mayor has lied to you, and the developer has lied to you. And the developer, at 2 meetings that I was at, he went and told the people, they tried to sweet talk everybody. Oh, if you don't want it, we won't do it. I remember Don Monte saying that at 2 major meetings. Oh, if you don't want it, we won't do it. Well, I don't think the people want it. That's the feedback I get. And so tell him, get out of Hempstead. And it's time to not only understand that your village trustees have lied to you and the mayor and misrepresented this whole thing through this whole process, but the developer has too. He is as culpable as they are. They're in this together for whatever reason that they have to think that they wanted to bring in 8,000 or 10,000 more people into here and build it as a city right up to the property line, tall buildings. And it's not going to just stop in that downtown area. It's going to go into the Heights. It's going to go over this way. It's going to go over that way. And it's going to snowball.
Is it the same developer? The huge
No.
complex on South Franklin?
That's not the same developer.
That's
So
Peter.
you know
That's
what
Peter
they're-
Flores.
What
It
they're
is.
doing with that
And
South
it's
Franklin
completely
building.
false.
Yeah, and
What they're
about
doing with
schools?
it, they're
What about
trying to pull
security?
people out of the other apartments in the central town. See, and then when they get them into the other building it's not rent controlled, then as soon as it's time, they'll raise the rents and all those people will have to leave. It's like it's like there's a scheme here. There's a scheme to take over this community. And the people need to organize, they need to get together, you all need to talk to your neighbors, and you have to understand that the credibility of the village, your elected officials, it's really scary. when you cannot count on them to tell you the truth. And I'll tell you, they continue to lie. What Don has done here tonight, and I'm sorry to have to say this, but for him to tell you that they didn't know that this was going to be this whole downtown area, and all of a sudden he's building down there. They gave him the right to do whatever they want to do. That's the way the contract's written.
Can I mention something real quickly? The meeting we had in the basement of the library, I'm going to just read from the Reporter and Newsday. Overflow crowd, greeted by applause from an overflow crowd at the public hearing on the proposed overlay zoning for the project. 43 people spoke, 40 were in favor of it. So it's obvious that along the process, a lot of the people who did speak were in favor. I was not, and I voted against the overlay, despite what she says, and I brought a copy of the extract with me, just in case there's any issue on that regard. But there are, without a doubt, a problem that we're having with this plan. And Don Monte, whether it wants to be stated or not, has said right along for a few years that it was the development of the downtown which would be the thrust of this project. No one, mayor or the other trustees, and I'm sure the community residents were pleased when he decided to go to parking lot 1. It was the old low-lying fruit concept in development that he approached. The result, of course, is that we're going to be pained by this. However, all the ideas that were given away all of the village, were given away the library and the village hall, etc., is not the case. And the fact that if anything is taken, it has to be rebuilt with something as good as or better than.
Trustee
and it
Ryan.
requires another vote.
We're out of time.
It does not
Thank you.
require
Just
another
one
vote. I
half. Wait.
really
Well,
don't
that's a
want-
subsequent to the contract that she read.
Excuse me.
No, that-
Just one statement, Mr. Rashad.
I would just like to say, we have 2 seats open for trustees. What we have to do is start putting in who will work for the village. If they don't work for the village, day after they return up, put somebody else there. And until we start doing that, we're going to always have this problem. Because if you notice, all the people's come and they get pilots here in Freeport, and nobody in Hempstead can vote on the pilots, only people in the town and the county. So they're going to bring them right to us. So we need to start just like I said, we got 2 trustees coming up in March. You know what to do. If you don't want them, get them out. And then when you come back around for the mayor and the other 2 trustees, get them out. That's what we have to do. And if they don't do what we want them to do, then get them to.
Thank you. Ms. Wilson?
Need to liaison's attorney to the village attorney, where it said, in order to sell the property, you have to make a certain finding that you will produce other buildings to take care of the needs, to replace the buildings you take down. However, in the master developer agreement, the very night that they adopted the master developer agreement, that finding was adopted. That finding has already been adopted. It's number 23 of the whereas clauses, and in the lawsuit, the village Mayor Hall attested to the fact that the finding was taken. It's there. The defendants are exhibit number 32 indicates that they did in fact make this finding, and now they're all of a sudden saying, "Oh, you have to have a finding." They made the finding on February 7, 2012.
Okay, I just want you to know we're out of time. We have to leave.
Let me just
Ms.
say
Wilson,
one
okay.
thing,
Yes.
please, okay? What I object to is every time we have an open meeting at the Village Hall, it's canceled. No public questions. And to me, that's a way of getting around to do what you want to do.
Point well taken. It's an executive decision, point well taken.
Yes, but you never object to
It's an
it. You
executive
don't object
decision.
to it. You haven't
It's
called.
an executive decision,
more
point well
statement.
taken.
Go ahead.
When we say cancel, the people have to stay and say
It's supposed to be
goodbye.
on our side. We have our trustees who's been working for us. Yet here comes a developer who takes over and does what he wants. And they sit back and let him do what he wants.
After this, what's the next?
Supreme?
The problem is the contract. Not the overlay zone, but the contract. Inside the contract, they knew that he was only going to build 10% housing and we had a housing problem. When we asked them to do a community benefit agreement to give us 35 to 40% housing of everything developed in this development, they said no. The contract is the problem. We need to foil the contract and close that contract. That's where the problem is.
How do we do that?
Now, what we need to say is there's been a breachment, because the breachment is contract that the community has never had a say, has never had a hear. There's never been a hearsay. Even the community development contract, it was not with the community, it was with the developer and a selective body. The community has never been able to speak out on this project, how we feel from top to bottom. Yes, the room was packed, Mr. Ryan, when the overlay zone hearing was there, but it was a hearing for overlay zone, not for the contract. So we've never been heard on this contract as a community. That's what has to happen. That contract needs to be rescinded.
That's right.
If you're going to do anything, we need to protest on rescinding the contract.
Exactly.
Because that's where the problem lies. It doesn't have nothing to do with the zoning, has nothing to do with the housing. It's the contract. Because in the contract, the developer and the Village of Hempstead are partners.
That's right.
Not you.
That's right.
You are not a partner.
Exactly right.
It's the elected official that was elected that's the partnership with the developer. And why they make that deal? Why is that before? Because they want to do a new town hall, a new library, a new firehouse, everything they thought they can get. Well, I'll do it. But he has no money. He has no money.
So we're gonna pay
And
for
if
it.
the contract, and just hear me out, and if the development doesn't finish the contract, once they open and start, guess who will finish that contract?
The money has been added with this new partner, but I'm in agreement with most of what is being said here. I do feel that you have to be a little bit careful as you talk about things that this is illegal and this was done under the table, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I'm not happy, as I said before, and if we have a way that we can possibly do this without committing a lawsuit that would be more damaging for the residents, I'm all ears. You give me a call, and I'll be right there.
Okay,
The truth of the matter
we
is, though,
thank everyone for coming out. This seems to be of interest.
no, they closed the building at 9.
This seems to be of an interest to the community. We will need to have a follow-up meeting to this meeting.
Saturday here between 9 and 2. But nothing has been addressed as far as overpopulation, who's going to pay for this, sewage, nothing. Okay? And you're talking about eight families registering their kids. Guess what? When your taxes keep going up and you keep renting out rooms, that's what's going to happen. Lower taxes. We support Garden City. We support Rockville Center. We support everybody. Who supports us? That's our taxes that got to go out there. And all these pilots, okay, another way for tax abatements, that's nonsense.
They have to be abolished, period. They should just do away with it. If there is not a public
I'll be in a meeting. I'll be home soon. Bye.
nothing's going to change.
Listen, I am so upset about this whole thing.
But just being upset is not going to change it. Everybody's upset. This person.